Is AI going to replace our jobs? I think the answer is it depends. Is that like a bad use or misuse of AI? It's literally his voice, and we fixed it. And what did we do? Client was so happy; they were blown away. They were like, "I cannot believe you fixed this. We thought this video was ruined."
AI can help us predict and understand what to create, but people don't make a decision based off that. We know that most decisions are emotionally driven, or at least part, but what influenced their decision in the first place?
This is Between Two Pixels, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Between Two Pixels podcast. My name is Bryan. Owen. I'm one of the owners of Between Pixels, and I'm here with my esteemed guest and business partner, Josh Peters.
Did you forget your last name?
No, why? What did I say?
You're like Bryan Owen?
Yeah, sometimes. I'm just going to go by one name. I'm just Bryan.
I thought that the new name of our podcast was Two Green Pixels because we're both wearing green.
Yeah, I know. It could be, but that's the way it works. I don't have a professional dressing me. So
yeah,
it's good to be here. We're talking today about AI.
Cool. So Allen Iverson.
Yes, he was a fantastic basketball player back in the day. For those of you who may have been around,
we're here talking about practice. That's one of his most famous quotes. We're talking about practice.
Yeah. He was. There's probably some lessons we can learn from him because he was
never
like
practiced.
6 foot, never practiced, just like a ridiculous athlete. But
yep.
Anyway, we digress. We are talking about AI, whose full name is artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
Which represents a large and complex set of technologies that a lot of people don't quite understand. And we're not going to get into a lot of the philosophy and future casting and all that of it, but we're going to talk more about how it applies to our business, which is content production, video production, and marketing, a little bit about where we think it might go, maybe some practical stuff about use cases, and then maybe some kind of pitfalls to avoid. So,
yeah.
Does that sound good?
I think that sounds awesome. All
right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'd just like to find out, I think I know the answer to this because we worked together for a long time. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? What is your general feeling about AI? Is it something that we should embrace, or is it something that we should try to avoid?
Yes. Well, I will say that I try to be nice to it. I tell it, thank you.
Yes, it doesn't have emotions, but I'm sure it would appreciate
just in case it's taking notes. Yeah. I always tell it, thank you. Well, I'll say this about me. My background's video, with yours being marketing and whatnot, and lots of things. Bryan has so many master's degrees. Just
not in stuff that we do.
Just oozing master's degrees. But mine being video. So video guys and gals, I think a lot of them get into it because of the gadgets and stuff. And it's like, oh, that's cool. So like, I like to have all the toys, and I guess to some extent I didn't really get into it for that. I just really liked, really liked editing. But I will say, a lot of times video people are like kind of early adopters. When something new comes out, like, oh, this new drone's out, I got to get that, or this like cool whatever camera. That's not me. Like, I am not an early adopter. I'm like, you guys go and figure that out. And then once it actually works, then I'll do it. And so with AI, I'm kind of like that. Like, but the thing is now it just moves so fast that being an early adopter, it's kind of like, it's like game over. It's kind of it progresses, and it'll be like, oh, this new tool's out. Everyone's using it. It's solving this problem. So, that cycle happens in like a month or two now. So it's one of those things where I guess, if I feet to the fire on it, I'm an optimist. I think that a lot of the problems and concerns that we're going to talk about later, they self-correct. There are some things that it will probably just change about how we work, how our brains work, how we do work, kind of similar like social media. I feel like everyone has ADHD now because of social media. The printing press changed the way people thought and organized. Before that, people just stood around in circles and talked like in ancient Greece, and you get the printing press and all of a sudden, what do you have? You have rows, and what is what does a corporate event look like? It looks like a book. It has a thing down the middle and rows like this, and AI, social media has made everyone need things really fast. Videos can't be long. They need to be short. So what is AI going to do? Like, I don't know. It's probably going to change our brains because of the way things, what we're fed and like what's done for us. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's just an evolution.
Yeah. Can you, we've done some interesting things, I think, using AI.
Yeah.
And we can kind of look at it as like on the marketing side and on the content production side, because we think about them as very integrated, but the application of AI so far has been kind of different use cases.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how we've leveraged AI and how you feel like AI can best be used for content planning and production side of things. And I can talk a little bit maybe about what we've seen on the marketing side so far.
Yeah.
So how have we used it?
Exactly. I have a couple notes on it. I think one of the most basic ways, I think a lot of people are probably using it, is like summary and notes, just obviously like we're using it in all of our meetings to take notes and do different things. And it's like everyone has their little AI bot that joins the call. Which, even in the last few months, I've seen that progress because it's like no one had those things. And then now everybody does. So you got twice as many people in every meeting and half of them aren't real. But that's definitely super helpful. But another one would be, so just for sorting footage. So when we have content, we have interviews, we have hours and hours and hours of interviews. This happened recently. A client gave us a giant catalog of content. And then they were asking us like, I know I said this in there. And the other company that they aren't working with anymore, they didn't put it in there. I know it's in there. So like, let's find out. Take all that content, export the audio, put it up into various different tools. So like you could use Descript, you could use Noda. If you had the transcripts, you could probably use ChatGPT. But like there's so many tools and the tools kind of evolve. And so it just depends on, I'm always testing stuff out and then canceling subscriptions and trying to figure it out. But even something like that, you throw it up, say, all right, this is an interview. You can tell it this is an interview. So it'll give you different outputs, and then summarize this for me, give me the key talking points, give me the time codes for certain sound bites, and it will like log it all for you. Give that to the client. They're like, this is great. The producers go through it. So, I mean, I did that recently and it was hours and hours and hours of stuff. And it took me maybe 20 minutes to do it. And the producer was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, this is so helpful. I'm like, it's great. Because it does. I mean, in the past, like you would just scrub through all that stuff and you'd make notes and you might take the audio and like send it over to Rev, to have it transcribed. But then you still had to just do like a search function to try to find it. So it was a little clunky. But that's one of the things. I mean, I would say just on that side as well, just processing audio to get descriptions and summaries and stuff would be things we post on YouTube. I mean, you can do it for social media copywriting, I guess, as well. But like for the most part, just being able to quickly summarize, like I don't want to spend my time as a business owner rewatching a podcast just to summarize it. So like that we've created either for ourselves or for a client or whatever that is. So just to be able to do that and then make sure that everything's in line. So all those AI tools know that your thumbnail and your title and your keywords and your descriptions all have to be perfect. And so they'll rate you and you can make sure that's right. So it's super fast. I mean, because a lot of those descriptions, I mean, how many people read descriptions on YouTube videos? It's like not really that much. Like the descriptions are more about getting the right SEO for search. I mean, you might on like a podcast maybe go in and be like, what is this interview actually about? But most of the time you just hit play and then like, I don't like this and skip it.
So that one would be in the broad category of like making the operations more efficient, summarization. So normally in the past you would say like, hey, we need someone to like watch this video, this recording of this meeting and pull out the main points of it. And so now AI can summarize it, but also can identify the triggers that mark that that's something that's like interesting, right? And pull that out and summarize it for you.
Like topically. So you're just trying to, because otherwise you just hunt through it all. And a lot of times we would just label it in the edit, and we still do that.
Yeah.
But like so much faster. It just gives you that database that you can then just make sure your Premiere matches. I mean, I'm sure that Adobe will integrate a lot of that stuff, but like I said before, I'm not an early adopter, so I probably won't use it until we're a couple iterations down the road, because when you upgrade everything in Adobe to like the new thing, and you have a company like ours with like all these editors, everything starts breaking. You have, it's cool when they come out with new things, but it doesn't always work right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like a version or two behind.
Yeah. But I think that's that's a good point, that's one of the biggest uses of AI across not just content production is eliminating some of this stuff that just takes a lot of human time. That's not really skilled labor. It's not creativity. It's just like literally categorizing things and kind of moving it along in the process. So that's one good example, but I know you've got some more that have been maybe a little bit more interesting, I guess, in terms of fascinating how you can do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I would say I'll start by saying, like the generative side of it.
Yeah.
And I find it more, I don't know, realistic, I guess, right now, on audio for certain things. So that would just be, a lot of people are using this now, but just AI generated voiceovers. You can go choose from their catalog. I mean, we did an event recently, and we used celebrity voices for it that were in the catalog, and it was like very cool just to kind of do like it was a Back to the Future themed thing, and it's like you were able to go and choose like celebrity voices and create something. So that was really cool. But then just doing like corporate stuff, you just need a VO and you just like want to go find the right one and you can spin it out. So that's kind of like a lot of people are doing that. The other thing would just be cloning whoever's voice. So, you have an interview. So like an example, more recently, I wanted to use a CEO's voice for an interview or for a video. And of course, they're not ever available, very rarely. And so
they were in China, I think, at the time.
Something like that. And so we were like, all right, cool. Let's just go create a clone. We'll use the existing footage we have, create that clone audio, run the script through it. Of course, they were like, well, it doesn't 100% sound like them. The inflection's not right. So like you can just, text to speech, you type it in, you get your VO, but you can dial in the inflections and all those things. So that's cool. And for that example, we were just using it as like a mock-up to be like, hey, just like, we just want you to know this is what it would sound like. And they're like, we want to redo the VO, but we like it with her voice. But then now, so that's like what it's been for a while. But now you can actually, revoice. So revoicing kind of gets into another way that we're using it, which is where whether we're repairing it or doing it in another way. So here's an example.
Filling in gaps.
So it was like another example for that I've kind of like two, but one, we did this interview. Actually, it was a 1-day shoot with like 4 sets and like a 10-person crew and all these different rooms, and all these people were at this conference and they were coming in to film their breakout sessions on that day. So we had different environments set up. I had like in my room, probably like a 6-person discussion panel, and another one, it was a green screen room, and another one, it was like a product room where they had their products and they could like talk about them. And we had multi cameras going and producers in all the rooms and stuff. So my room was having issues, and so I had to like pull someone. I'm like, I need help. We got to get all this audio. I had more people than I expected, so I pulled someone away from their room. They come in, we're hustling because we literally have people showing up like back to back in 2-hour chunks. So we go do it. We get my stuff set up. Then they have to leave to go back to their room. They get back to their room. Their person's ready to go, and the person's like, okay, yeah, ready to go. They get ready to hit record, and the camera's like, won't accept the audio input. And it's just like not working. We're like, he goes, I didn't have time to figure it out. So I just literally had to record the camera audio just right off the top. So that's terrible. Like audio is so important with video content. Like it has to be good, or else it makes your stuff look terrible. So you can't have this one. So, but he just knew, he was like, we'll have to figure out a way to fix it with AI. I don't know how we're going to fix it with AI, but we're going to figure out a way to fix it. So when we came back, we really didn't have a great solution at first, because there was like all these steps, and we didn't want like the client to find out that it got screwed up. So I was like, I was trying to figure out a way to fix it without them having to know. I'm fine telling them after the fact, but I was like, let me just fix it first. Then I can tell them, like, guess what we had to do to fix this?
Yeah.
So anyway, so a new release came out with this site that we use called 11 Labs, and where revoicing was not part of what they did. It was only text to speech, but then they allowed revoicing. So what I did, found a video from the guy from a previous year, took his audio that was on the crappy camera, echoey, and then ran that through. So created his clone from previous year's video, ran that through it, revoiced it with his own voice, and it came out sounding like his voice from the previous year, which, to be honest, sounded better because they had just been presenting all day, several days on a floor, talking to customers, doing all this stuff. Everyone was really tired when we did these. So their voices were a little rough.
You can always be at your best when you're using it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're able to use his voice from a previous year. So that's an example of, like, is that like a bad use or misuse of AI? It's literally his voice. And we fixed it. And what did we do? Did AI replace our job? Like, no. I mean, it's an audio editor maybe wouldn't have had to spend as much time. Like, they probably would have spent more time, like, trying to make that audio that we did get sound good. But instead, I spent, like, between that and another project where I had to do the exact same thing for a different reason, probably 100 hours fixing audio. And so I'm just kind of, it's like, it's allowed us to deliver something to our customer that they probably wouldn't have gotten as good of a quality. Because I had a similar thing happen where we had audio interference at a live event, and I had multiple speakers, and it was a one-time thing. And there was, like, interference from, like, something happening, and it got distorted, and the whole thing was, like, constantly crackling. So I was able to take that source audio, do the exact same thing, clone the people's voices, replace it. And when you replace it, it got rid of all the crackling because it resampled from the old audio that sounded good. And we're like, the client was so happy. They were blown away. They were like, I cannot believe you fixed this. We thought this video was ruined because of what happened. And we're like, nope, we got it. And they were, like, super happy. So that, it's not all bad with AI. So I would say the only other one that I'm really getting into now with repair is going to be avatars. So, I think in the past, there's, like, video generated avatars, AI generated video avatars. They've looked like lifeless droids, It's like, hi, do you want to learn about our company? And they just sit there and they don't move, and it's like they're on a blue background or whatever solid color. Well, now a lot of the tools are getting better, and what they're doing is, they're creating them based off of some source video. And so it's really just kind of like re-lip syncing, and then it's kind of like matching mannerisms. So a lot of times the mannerisms can be a little bit off, but I'll say the way that we're using it is, like, I had a hard drive fail, and I got all the footage restored except for, like, maybe a handful of clips. And I needed some clips because, like, this is stuff we shot, like, in a foreign country, in a remote location.
It was outside.
So I'm like, I'm missing about 2 minutes of this thing where I need this person on camera. So I took the clip and trained the AI tool or whatever, regenerated that clip, and then I uploaded the actual audio because the audio was recorded on a separate device. Said, okay, give me a generative AI of this person's avatar in a live environment based on this audio, and it spit back to me perfectly lip synced clips. Now, the hand motions can get a little erratic if you don't submit the right source material to train it. But, like, I showed it to you, and there's definitely clips in there when you're cutting back and forth between these, like, you literally cannot tell that it's AI. And then you drop some B-roll in, drop some graphics. So that's just one of those things. It's like, instead of me having to tell the client, you know what, things happen, and that's what our answer has been in the past. Hard drives fail, cards get corrupted. Sorry,
we lost the footage somehow.
Something, So now what it's done for us is, like, for one, the clients are happy; they don't ever have to worry about it, and it's helped us, like, I think make a couple different decisions. Like, we do want to record. We don't always record our audio on separate devices than our video, but we should run backups. We have, like, lav packs that have built-in SD cards, and it's like, all right, let's just throw a lav on this person, and we'll run that separate than the video and the audio source, and we'll run it unmonitored. They like have for tech people, they have like 32-bit float, so it doesn't have to like, it never gets overdriven. It's always going to be like the perfect level. So, it's one of those things that it kind of like AI then like informs how we do stuff. And so it does have a tendency to make you lazy because like you can be like, well, just fix it with AI.
Right.
But it also can help you kind of have new ways that you future proof, like, and not, have something go really bad. But I would say, I mean, I'm definitely, other than that, upscaling has been great with AI. It wasn't great at first, but upscaling images. So clients, if you're in anything in the creative space, you ask a client for a logo, you ask them for photos, and they're like, this is that. We got them. Here's some high res ones. And you get them. Guess what? They're not high res for whatever reason that is.
Yeah.
Well, now it's like, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, we've got footage. Someone's like, oh, we need this manufacturing footage for this, like a B2B sales thing. And they just send something they shot on their phone. And you're like, that is like 540 pixels across. You're like, what year was this shot? So they send it to you, but then you can upscale to like 2 or 4x. And like, honestly, it looks pretty good. Like when you do that and you scale it back and you put it in a video that's already got other clips in it, you're really, I mean, you're saving the client a lot of time and money.
Yeah.
And then on the photos side, it's the same thing, just being able to upscale, get the output quality looking better. But, there's been kind of tools for that in the past, but now it's a lot more substantial and a lot higher quality.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's great.
I mean,
yeah, on the marketing side, I mean, I kind of look at it as like a colleague. So it hasn't really replaced as much of what we do has become like a tool that we're able to use to make us more efficient, So, with like a new company that we're working with, when we're generating concepts or doing research, it really helps on that front. Obviously, you can get a lot of information to get kind of up to speed. So we work with some tech companies and other companies where the level of domain expertise you need to represent them as a marketing agency is a lot. So it really helps us get up to speed really, really quickly. So we understand like the background. It helps a lot with research, a lot of the research that we're doing as well. And then once we get to the point where we're pitching a concept, right? So we're helping these companies figure out like, what is the unique messaging that's going to like resonate with a human. A lot of times that takes us to kind of come up with that stuff to know like, what's the opportunity? Because AI is not going to really understand the nuance of the industry, and it's not going to understand like what the emotional connection needs to be with the brand. And so that is something that we need to do. But a lot of times when we come up with an idea and we have to pitch it, it's really hard to explain something in words, like something that's going to be visual and turn into a campaign, because we'll do design, we'll do video. And so AI is great. We can do some generative work with like showing an image of something like, or even a video. And it's been really, really, really bad at times, but sometimes it helps create some visuals that are good enough to explain the idea.
Yeah.
So people will be like, oh, that's a great idea. I kind of I want to do that. Right. And then a lot of the stuff on, in terms of like just simplifying and summarizing and things like that. So we're coming up with either scripts or, we do a lot of long form writing. A lot of that stuff is AI can get you started and to kind of get past the writer's block, or, come up with ideas, or it's a good stimulant to try to get the process started. And then you can kind of run from there. So I know that the beginning of the process in a lot of the creative work is oftentimes the hardest, and it can kind of get you unstuck. Right. So we use AI for a lot of that stuff. And then we kind of go and take it from there. So I think it's become integrated into pretty much every step of the process, from the research to understand the audience, to generating the concepts, to producing it, and now we can, on the design side, create more like templates. We'll create templated content, and then we can use that to add content to it or add text to it, so that AI then can get it distributed to the right people and kind of match the audience with the right content and message.
Yep.
It still requires us to kind of come up with those ideas and really feed it, to your point about it needs inputs, it needs quality inputs, because that's what it's going to rely on for the other things. Right. So a lot of that kind of work is being facilitated by AI, getting rid of some of the stuff that would take us hours to do manually, but then also anything that's creative, it's become like a really good way to help us get started, you know, and kind of come up with more ideas, different ideas, things we may not have thought about, but then we'll kind of get together and use those as a team to kind of come up with what we're doing from the marketing standpoint. So,
Yeah.
So it's impacting a lot, but I'm like you, I'm optimistic in how we've been able to use it and think that it's going to be, you know, it's a power tool. So you need people that really understand the tools in order to use it effectively. And I think the winners in AI are going to be the people that know how to apply it in the right way to the specific problem for the brand. Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think it kind of leads to a question that a lot of people maybe would ask in our industry, which is like, is AI going to replace our jobs? You know, and I think, you know, with all the things that we've touched on so far, I mean, I think the answer is, it depends. You know, I
Like
want to
true
say
consultant.
I want to say no, but I also know that it will replace potentially some aspects of a job. But like you and I were talking about this before, but you know, my job didn't exist. Like what, you know, video marketing and video content, like to this level. Like when I graduated from college in 2000, in 2000, my options were like go work in news or make videos that you burn onto DVDs for companies. And that might be in corporate America, or it might be like like exercise videos. I just remember thinking, gosh, when I was watching an exercise video like P90X or something, I'd be like, how do you get a project like that? You know what I mean? Like that's all there was.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's terrible. But you know, because
cinematography on that stuff is just
so good,
fantastic.
Yeah, Tony Horton. But you know, the thing that's crazy, because you just those things didn't exist, and it's like I have a degree, and for a lot of people, it's like you go to film school. I mean, I guess like if you go to film school, you're going to work in film. But how many? You know, not everyone that goes to film school works in film. So like the jobs back, you know, in 2000, to be like, oh, I'm going to go work on feature films. It's like, okay, sure, go for it. You know, you had to find, you were probably going to work in news, or most people did work in news. That's what it was. So when you look at what we do now, and even social media, it's like, I'm sorry, that job didn't exist. Like people just adapt, you figure it out. And I kind of feel like with AI, it's the same thing. Yeah, certain jobs are going to go away, but a lot of new jobs are going to come about. And it, you know, it reminds me of the book. I think I'd mentioned to you before, but Daniel Pink, and I've read this book like in 2012 when the company started. It's called A Whole New Mind. And it was just as we were trying to think about where we needed to focus our time and how we needed to position ourselves. But his whole point in that book, he talks a lot about the age of the knowledge worker, which it's about what you know. It's not about what you do. It's not about the task that you do, because like what happened during that time period is like a lot of jobs got outsourced to other countries who didn't have as much of an opportunity for jobs in their country. You know, it's like you go to Fiverr or whatever, and it's like you can hire designers, you can hire people from all over the world, and it's like a global market when it comes to like just finding someone to do those jobs. And that's kind of the way it is in a way. It's like, so did those jobs not exist in the US anymore? Well, no, the industry has just grown immensely. And so, you know, but it's more about how do we contextualize it now? It's like, if you just need a logo, you can go and submit one and get it crowdsourced and then have a bunch of people design it and pay the best one. That's fine. But why? Okay, then the question is like, well, why isn't everyone just doing that? Why aren't big brands just doing that? Well, no, they need someone like us, or even companies bigger than us, to help them create a whole thing around it.
That means something to customers.
It means something to customers. So yeah, and I feel like AI is a very similar thing. So it's just the same story, different characters. So like, yes, it's like a progression of, and I've kind of talked about like web. When web started, it's technicians built websites. And then the tools got to where creatives could build websites. And then it's now progressed to where entrepreneurs can build websites. And same thing with like design. It used to take a technician and a big expensive computer to design a logo and to design anything, like
Yeah.
to create print brochures and like all this stuff. You had to have all this like technical stuff to do it. Well, then all of a sudden the processing catches up and the tools get more simple. And you're like, all right, now creatives can do it on a laptop. And now it's like, guess who can do it? Well, an entrepreneur can do it because they can just go get on something on a website and be like, I want this. And then they can look at all the stuff that gets designed and only buy the one that they like. So it's pretty, it's a similar thing. I mean, it's just not something that I don't think should be that concerned about because the evolution of what people need will go up as well.
Yeah. So if everybody's using AI to create everything, then everybody's going to look the same.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be no differentiation among brands. And that's really what creates, at least in the consumer's mind, makes somebody more or less interesting because they kind of understand what they stand for and how they're different in the market and stuff like that. So
yeah, like marketing is about helping people stand out. So if you're a person that's in a startup situation or you're starting a business, whatever, you probably might need to use AI or other tools like I've mentioned to help just kind of get things moving and off the ground. And that's fine. But then at some point, if you want to stand out, it's like AI might help you do the blocking and tackling, like the base stuff.
Yeah.
But if you really want to stand out, you're going to have to hire a professional to help you figure out. And I feel like that's what we're going to be able to do. We want to implement AI for our customer and figure out. So we'll be the ones that know how to make it not look like it was generated by AI.
Right.
Or we'll have how to figure out how to help you implement AI to deepen your reach and like narrow. And we've talked about this in other podcasts, but where content's going in the future is more personalized, tighter audience groups. How do you reach those groups? AI can definitely help you do that. And you know, I think just look at social media. It's like, because social media has become so much more personalized and the volume of content that's needed to reach smaller audience segments has grown. We now spend way more time creating different versions, creating different drill downs of different things. And it's like, it hasn't reduced the need for content. It will increase, even though it will reduce a certain menial tasks and certain like processing and data tasks and stuff that no one probably wants to do anyway. The need for creative specificity will probably go up, I think.
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity, I think, a need for content advertising and marketing to be a lot more relevant, and then it becomes more useful. So as you said, initially it was one size fits all marketing, and then now with AI and intelligent tools, there's much better matching and prediction and stuff. And so you can have your slice of your world to be much more customized to what you care about.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you know, you need people to help understand how to make that emotional connection and understand the nuance of like what's going on culturally and what are the other competitors doing, all those things that really require someone, like you said, to apply the tools in the right way. Right. And if someone realized how many tools we have used and how many tools you have used and tried, and then understood how to take those tools and apply the right one for the right situation, the right time. Yeah. It can be overwhelming, and that's only going to grow. So people need to understand that it's not a single button you push to generate really good content. You're basically pulling all these tools together and using the right one because they'll have really specific needs. A lot of them are single use case AI tools, right? And so you have to be able to use the right one in the right time. And so you have to be kind of a power user. So I agree. We talked about research where it's, by the next few years, AI and technology is going to replace a lot of jobs. It's going to change a lot of jobs, but it's actually introducing and opening up opportunities for even more jobs. I think it was about a $12 million job difference between the number of jobs that are going to be replaced versus the jobs that are going to be created. So it's going to be more jobs created than are replaced or removed, but it just requires that people are flexible with like what I do might change, how I do it might change, but the value that I provide, if I really understand the value I provide, that's still going to be needed. It's just going to be applied in a different way. Yeah. Right. So,
well, on the marketing side, like, how do you feel like it will impact? So like we were kind of talking about AI and reaching targeted audiences. So obviously, the algorithms and using AI and using research and different things, like you can get the personas and they're probably going to be tighter and tighter and then be more specific. So they're going to know everything about me from my search trends to whatever to be able to give me exactly what I need. So what are your thoughts on how that will impact a company's need to work with a brand if you can sell a product just by using the data and getting in, and they know, like, if you give them this on the landing page or on the, the pop-up, whatever the tool is when you're getting in. So however, whatever the platforms look like, whether that's on social or through search or whatever it is, like, what is your take on that and the importance of marketing and how it fits in?
Yeah. In terms of the importance of using an agency or.
Yeah. So like if AI can give you the click, what about what's beyond the click? Like is it important? Is it important?
Yeah. So I think it impacts the integration process and the collaboration between an agency, because the client has to understand a lot about their business and make those decisions, and they're going to rely on people that, number one, understand the technology and what tools to use. So that's going to be more and more important for agencies, and then they're going to need to rely on the people who can make the connections and kind of pattern match and understand the nuances of the market to create the content. But it's going to be more in forms of like templates, where it used to be like we'd create one version of something and that was the version of the thing that we put out there. Now you're working with technology to create more templates that then can be modified to fit the right application, and then it can be distributed. So you're not creating 1,000 versions of the same thing because it needs to be really, really targeted to the specifics of the audience. The AI and technology is going to understand what that person needs and to be able to predict it by a host of factors, not just search trends, but way more than that. And then they're going to be able to do the matching. So that's going to be the partnership there. But I think what we've also talked about is the transactional versus like what leads to that transaction. So, you might find that if you're looking at metrics, you might have a high conversion rate or a click-through rate for some piece of content, and that's great. But that just meant that you caught the person at the time when they had already decided that they're going to make a decision, right? So if you put out a 6-second pre-roll ad or a banner ad or any of the other forms of advertising we see in digital, right? The attention span is shrinking. So that's great, but it only means that you just happen to connect with them at the right message at the right time, which is awesome. But if you don't take a step back a little bit, you don't realize how much of the story needs to be told before that, right? So someone made a decision, but what influenced their decision in the first place, right? So what created in their brain a differentiation to know that they need your service or product and that you have the best offering and that they believe kind of in your story, right? Like they believe that you're the company that they want to work with. And so a lot of that stuff goes into longer form content, stuff that's not getting clicks, that AI can help us predict and understand what to create to get it out there. But then that results in the transactional kind of process that happens at the end of it. But I think that is a risk, is that we put too much reliance on the wrong metrics because AI is able to match the content so well that we think that that's all we need. But people don't make a decision based off that. We know that most decisions are emotionally driven, or at least part. A lot of them are mostly emotional decisions. And so a lot of the content that we're using for advertising and marketing we don't really have the opportunity to create that emotional connection. That has to happen through lots of other work that happens in other places, right? It's influenced by AI, but is in longer form content and things that, we have an opportunity to tell more of the story of the brand.
Yeah.
So
no, 100%. And I'm a person, like, I love when I get targeted ads. I'm like, please sell me what I want. I will buy it if it's what I want, and because you just don't have time. Like, I'm not going to sit around and like search. I don't know what I want. I mean, like, I will search a couple things, but then you have a whole nother ecosystem of like ads and targeted Google search and people paying to be in there. And so like, then you have to go and look through all those and decide, like, is this legitimate? Or you can just go listen to a bunch of podcasts and try to decide like, what are people talking about, or watch YouTube videos. But you can skip all that and just let the algorithm be like, this is what you want. And I know you want it because of all the other stuff that you're interested in. And I'm down with that. But it kind of back up your point. I'll get a lot of stuff. I'll click on it. And it's gotten pretty good at giving me what I want, because I'll go in and I'll see, I'm like, oh, their brand is good. Like, They have other content. They have stories. They have like,
Yeah. You still need to trust them.
yeah, they have maybe
Right?
influencers that I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, look, I actually follow that person. I watch their content and they're on their website. Look at that.
Yeah.
You know, so then you're able to, it's the things you're talking about though. And like, I kind of like explain it to you before, like, I think about it like to use, like, I like to use either football terms because you were a former college athlete. And so I feel
Yeah.
like
There's other sports I understand, but
you understand that.
very limited.
Like what? Like cricket?
No, more like basketball and
Basketball.
soccer.
Yeah, soccer.
Or football if you're not from the United States.
Well, it's kind of like, so I like explain a lot of things like in football terms, but it's like a run. I think about it like running. Like I'm a runner, and the principle is like the 80-20 principle, which, you know, there's a lot of 80-20 principles out there, but it's 80% of your training should be slow and 20% should be fast. And so you think about, if you do your base right, you build a big foundation where you get faster, slower, and then when you get faster up here, you're at a much higher peak and you're at a wider base. And so you have this big, strong, you know, pyramid for your training. Well, it's like using AI to reach people is like having a really tiny pyramid. It's like running and training, doing a bunch of like really high speed work for a 5K, and you might really get fast, but not as fast as you could be. But then you're probably going to get hurt if you do that for too long, because it's a really sharp, tight peak without a big base. And it's kind of a similar thing. It's like you can reach people, you can do that. You might convert, but you're probably not going to get repeat customers, and they're not going to really know what they're buying, or they might not subscribe to whatever that thing is that they're selling, whether it's, because I see a lot of that for products, you know, on social, but it could be used for anything. So it's just kind of thinking about, yeah, AI is going to be part of it. It's a tool, but it can't be the whole thing, because otherwise it'll be an unhealthy situation for the brand.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of it is just the same as thinking about the perspective, and using it when it should be using and how it should be used.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes us to a discussion about what are some of the challenges or pitfalls you see with AI, specifically to kind of what we do with content and marketing.
Yeah. Well, one is, you know, it could just make you lazy. You know, kind of like I gave that example of the audio being bad and just being like making the decision in the very beginning and just being like, we're just gonna fix it with AI.
Yeah.
And the decision wasn't necessarily like to be lazy and not fix it, but it was more of like to salvage the client's experience on set. But we knew we probably could fix it. So there's a risk that no one really learns to do things the right way, you know, and I think that is a problem. But it's a risk, but also it's kind of just like part of the evolution, because it's like, well, what does doing it the right way mean? Because like, when I started off in film and video, I didn't have a colored monitor on my camera because they didn't exist. So you had to look into a viewfinder, and then you had to make sure that the exposure was correct based off the amount of stripes on the person's face. And when you walked into a room and you were shooting, you had to look at the lights and guess the color temperature, and then set your white balance to that. Or you would like, you know, use a white balance card, but like, who had time to do that when you're like running and gunning and shooting stuff, you know? So you just kind of figured things out. Well, does anyone who work here know how to do that? No, they don't know to shoot with like a black and white monitor and like use zebra bars to get the proper exposure. Like, they have other tools. There's like false color, or they just look at the monitor, or like whatever it is. So it's like, the question is like, well, what's doing it the right way? I mean, now it's more about like the end product.
Yeah.
So like, you have an eye to where you look at it at the end and you can be like, that's good. And so that's kind of like this evolution of technician, creative, entrepreneur. Because like, an entrepreneur, to make money, should be able to look at something and be like, that's good. That my marketing content is good. It's going to reach my audience. If you're a good business owner, you should be able to look at that and know that. You don't necessarily need to know how to make it good.
Yeah. Because,
you know, AI should be able to help you solve those problems, and other creative tools. So, you know, that's kind of one of my concerns. I mean, I think a lot of the problems that could arise are going to self-correct. things like everyone's content looking the same, trying to use AI to replace video people, even, using AI to replace video content, like using avatars or not needing to, film something
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess that's a possibility. But even being able to implement all that stuff on their own is not that likely. And I think if you're a customer of ours and you want to do all your training content with like avatars or something, you don't want us to film it, I'm like, that's cool. Right now, it looks like robots talking to you, like, hello. I'm glad you're here to learn about HR.
Yeah.
And that's fine if you want to use that. But there will be, I'm waiting. I know that it's going to happen, that I'm waiting for the client to call and say, like, we tried to do this stuff with AI and we spent all this time and it looks bad. Will you guys fix it?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of that stuff will self-correct. I just think it just means that we have to be ready to be doing different stuff, and providing different solutions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But like, what are your thoughts on the pitfalls? I'm not that concerned with like the integrity of it, because I think that there will eventually just be tools that it'll be on YouTube and it'll pop up and it'll be like, this is AI generated. Like I know that they can already detect that stuff, but those things, I think it's the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want as long as the person you're replicating gives you permission. But and some don't even make you get permission. They just say, do you promise you have permission? Yes.
Exactly.
But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think fake content is right now the biggest concern for me, just because it's hard to discern in some cases what's AI and what's not, especially if you're not tuned into it. So I think that's a concern, but I think hopefully that'll be resolved at some point. There's a lot of concerns for things that are really more applicable to the AI technologies, like bias in the system and stuff like that. So we've already seen some of those problems, and being influenced by the training content, because the systems are only as good as the way that they're trained and the prompts that you put in there. And so that influences it as well. So I think some of those, but then the misapplication, I think, is, whenever we have this new technology, I think there's some assumptions built about that we create as an industry about like what it's going to be able to do. And I think sometimes we kind of overshoot those. And we've already talked about that, where it's used in places when it doesn't need to be used. And then it's not used maybe where it should be used. Right. So I think a lot of the things, our approach has always been to try to simplify the process, because I think we've both recognized in our histories before Between Pixels that like our industry tends to overcomplicate things. And so if we can do the same thing and do it more effectively or efficiently, like, we're going to do it. Right. So the question about what is the right use of AI is like, yeah, if it's going to make the product better and we're going to do it more efficiently, then that makes sense to do it. Right. So that's kind of what we're going to continue to invest in. But
yeah,
so I think those are the concerns. And I do think that it's just fascinating to watch and see how it plays out over the next like months and years.
Yeah.
Cause it is definitely a big change to how we do things. So for sure.
Well, cool. I think that's all good. I mean, I think we're getting close to the end of our episode. I don't want to go too far over time, but is there anything else that you'd want to say as we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be the first of many conversations probably and podcasts about this, because it's changing so quickly. But I think to summarize some of the things that I heard you say, and I think that is our position is that we kind of need to embrace it. That AI it's here and it's going to be here. It's not going to go away. It's going to replace some things, but it's going to require people to be adaptable, because it's going to change the way we do things. So we should approach it with less fear and more, I guess, optimism and excitement about how it can improve the way that we do things. Yep. We do need to invest in some protections to make sure that it's used, in ways that kind of help move things along rather than make things more challenging or create risk for people. But I think that it's really going to be the winners who are able to embrace it and really understand how to use it, because there's always going to be jobs for people who are smart and creative and good problem solvers, and who are able to kind of adapt to embrace whatever new technology is around the horizon. So I think it's going to be exciting, but I'm excited for like the next time we talk about this and just to see kind of where it goes between now and then. So
Yeah, because it's going to be moving fast, so it'll probably sound very different.
yeah, I agree. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks.
Yep.
It's great hanging out.
Yep. Let's do this again sometime.
We should.